As a result of Russia's invasion of Ukraine, Finland and Sweden will leave their historical neutrality and seek to join NATO. But how much fighting strength will their air forces bring? To begin, it should be emphasized that both the Swedish and Finnish armed services have built strong interoperability with their NATO neighbors over the years, refined via numerous bilateral and multilateral exercises. Furthermore, both Sweden and Finland have gradually embraced NATO standards for their military systems, which aids interoperability. Another significant factor is that these Nordic countries and NATO allies share a common geopolitical vision when it comes to basic European security issues, allowing for the establishment of fluid communication channels and, to some extent, good relations between their intelligence agencies and armed forces. Because of these traits, Sweden and Finland, despite their express independence, have long been considered NATO-friendly countries, which should make their integration into NATO's Combined Command and Operations Organization relatively simple. While Turkey is currently using its veto power to negotiate with the United States for a relaxation of economic sanctions and possibly resumption of participation in the Joint Strike Fighter program, no one seriously doubts that both countries will become the newest members of the North Atlantic Treaty Organization sooner rather than later. But in real terms, what power do the Swedish and Finnish air forces bring to the NATO table? Let us examine the quantitative contributions of the Finnish and Swedish air forces to the combined air power of the Atlantic Alliance Swedish Air Force. Saab JAS-39C Gripen. The Swedish Air Force uses the JAS-39 Gripen light fighter in its C form as its primary defensive-offensive asset, with 65 to 70 units in service, depending on the source consulted. This small but capable fighter was designed to meet specific Swedish requirements, such as being an easy and inexpensive machine to operate, with the smallest possible logistic footprint, and capable of being deployed in combat missions from the roads of the country's interior, dispersed operations doctrine, in order to avoid being destroyed in their bases in the event of a possible conflict with the defunct USSR. Despite its age, the Gripen C has received various improvements and is now a very effective combat aircraft capable of deploying the MBDA Meteor long-range air-to-air missile. The single-seat C and 20 Gripen D two-seaters will be modernized further and will stay in service until 2035, when they will be replaced by a next-generation fighter, perhaps the Tempest. Furthermore, the Air Force commissioned Saab to produce 60 Gripen E series, a highly upgraded, more powerful and capable variant of the JAS-39C, which the Brazilian Air Force also bought. Special mission aircraft. Sweden has a very technologically advanced military sector that has developed its own high-capability electronic reconnaissance platforms. The Swedish Air Force operates 2 Gulfstream 4 aircraft outfitted with intelligence equipment for electronic reconnaissance, or ELINT. It also possesses 2 Saab 340 AEW airborne early warning aircraft. It originally had 6 of them, each equipped with an AREI airborne scanning radar capable of identifying aircraft in all flight regimes and weather, as well as marine detection capabilities. These planes will be replaced by 2 GlobalEye AEW and C planes, which are far more powerful than the Saab 340 AEW in terms of platform and next-generation sensors. Given Sweden's small size and the lack of a requirement for regular long-distance deployments, its contributions to NATO's logistic transport capabilities will be minor. For in-flight refueling operations, the Swedish Air Force presently employs 5 C-130H Hercules and 1 KC-130H. A Saab 340 for light transport and liaison must be added. It is worth noting that Sweden has access to some heavy strategic transport capabilities because it is a partner in the European Heavy Airlift Wing, or HAW, flotilla, which consists of 3 C-17 Globemaster IIIs. Once the nation joins NATO, it is probable that its Air Force will need to invest in gaining some strategic deployment capabilities of its own in the short term. Helicopters. The Swedish helicopter force is organized on quick deployment operations, including light soldiers, armed reconnaissance, and special forces. The Swedish armed forces now have around 20 AW-109 LUHS light helicopters, 18 NH-90 medium helicopters, 9 for transport and 9 for ASW tasks, and 15 UH-60M Black Hawk helicopters. Finnish Air Force. FA-18 Hornet. The Finnish Air Force's combat capabilities is concentrated on more than 50 single-seat FA-18C Hornets and 7 twin-seat FA-18Ds, making it smaller than Sweden's but undoubtedly powerful. The Finnish Hornets have been upgraded several times over the years to keep up with modern threats, and they are now a very powerful weapon system, capable of being armed with AIM-120C7 AMRAAM medium-range air-to-air missiles, AIM-9X Sidewinder short-range air-to-air missiles, and the powerful AGM-158 Joint Air-to-Surface Standoff missiles, capable of destroying ships and ground installations up to almost 400 kilometers away. However, Finland's Air Force will be considerably more formidable since it has opted to replace its Hornet with the Lockheed Martin F-35A Block 4, the first of 64 contracted aircraft for €9.4 billion to be delivered in 2025. The Finnish Air Force relies on 3 Airbus C-295Ms for tactical transport, one of which also conducts electronic intelligence missions thanks to the installation of specific equipment. As previously stated, Finland is a partner in the European Heavy Airlift Wing, but these 3 C-17s are not a unique contribution as they are shared by various NATO member nations. Helicopters. The Finnish Army has around 20 NH-90 transport helicopters in the TTH ground operating version, which is the most important means in this sector. So far, it appears that the Finnish and Swedish Air Force's primary commitment to NATO will be in combat aviation. NATO's northern flank would get a significant reinforcement of more than 120 modern fourth-generation combat aircraft today. This fighting power would be greatly strengthened in the future with the advent of the Swedish Gripen E and the Finnish F-35A. The qualitative characteristics are perhaps the most difficult to analyze, but the intellectual effort is worthwhile. Beyond the numbers of planes and helicopters, what does the inclusion of Sweden and Finland mean in terms of NATO and Russia? In theory, the Baltic Sea would become a type of private NATO pool or lake, with the Russian Navy finding it impossible to depart, and Sweden's recent fortification of the vital island of Gotland aggravates the Russian military forces' predicament. Finland's accession would pose a significant danger to Russia since it would share more than 1,300 kilometers of border with a NATO ally on the Kola Peninsula, where Moscow deploys a significant portion of its strategic nuclear deterrent. A NATO offensive from Finland against the Murmansk corridor, 700 kilometers of rail and land routes, could disrupt communications and logistics between St. Petersburg and Moscow, as well as the important port of Murmansk, as well as all military bases on the peninsula, such as the port of Severomorsk, which houses the Northern Fleet, and a large portion of Russia's ballistic missile submarine force. The rough, wooded geography of that region would make it impossible for Russia to construct an effective defense against the deployment of heli-borne special operations personnel, reducing the threat. NATO strategists are particularly excited about these Nordic nations entering the alliance because it would force Russia to devote significantly more money to maintain its hitherto relatively safe northern flank. And if Moscow has less resources, it is more likely to become mired down or suffer a humiliating defeat in Ukraine, reducing its worldwide influence. Particularly in the Middle East, Central Asia, and Africa, Russia has been actively involved in challenging power regions traditionally controlled by the West. That's all for today, guys. If you liked our video, make sure to subscribe, leave a like, and also press the bell icon for any new updates.